Hello everyone, my name is Allison Restrepo, and I would first like to thank you for viewing my presentation titled Spanish Scribbles, Insight on Writing Instruction for Heritage Language Learners. Now for some quick background information, I am currently a master's student at Kansas State University in Modern Languages, focusing on second language acquisition. I've included my email here for if you would like to reach out regarding any questions about the presentation. And my research purpose, I completed this research as a part of a project for one of my courses where we dove into second language acquisition. This topic in particular, I had personal interest in because I myself am a heritage speaker. And I was wanting to discover more about instructional methods for heritage language learners in the heritage classroom, and also approaches in regards to writing specifically. Through this presentation, I hope to share my research findings as well as contribute to the discourse regarding heritage language instruction, specifically pertaining to writing. The agenda for this presentation, I will first start off by contextualizing some concepts regarding heritage language learners, followed by writing in the heritage language classroom. I will then compare two approaches to writing instruction, learning to write and writing to learn. I will then follow by providing some lesson plans that I have created following a writing to learn approach, and finalize everything with some concluding thoughts. So to begin, a heritage language as defined by Valdez 2005 is a non-majority language, in often cases arrived by immigrants who continue communicative use of the language in a location where that language is a non-societal norm or a non-dominant language. A heritage speaker then could be, for example, a child of an immigrant or an individual who shares connection to the heritage language, and due to that is to some degree bilingual. Now this could either be through comprehension, production, or exposure, or a mixture of all three. And a heritage language learner, in turn, is a heritage speaker who is seeking to engage with the language and pursue linguistic competence. Now, this is usually due to the fact that they have acquired the language in, for example, a home setting and have not had an opportunity to experience the language in an educational setting. So in regards to heritage language learners in the heritage language classroom, researchers Kagan and Dillon described heritage speakers as unbalanced bilinguals, meaning that usually the dominant language of the heritage speakers is the language that is dominant in the region where they acquired language, with the heritage language being the weaker of the two languages. Now, this can make stepping into the heritage classroom a very daunting task for heritage language learners. Now, this could be either due to the fact that they may be placed at a level that is unfit for their linguistic ability. They may have insecurities with their language use or the formality of their language use, and they may have experienced critique from others in regard to their language use. Now, researchers Hedgecock and Lefkowitz conducted interviews to heritage language learners and instructors and found that heritage language learners are most concerned with improving their writing skills, as they felt that this is an area that they needed to see improvement in as far as their linguistic ability. So seeing as writing was a main concern for many heritage language learners, I wanted to research more into two common approaches in regards to instruction for writing. The first one being a learning to write approach. Now, Manchón describes this as writing to demonstrate a specific practiced content. So what this can kind of look like could be things like grammar drills, uncontextualized writing prompts, and focus on writing as a product. So some examples of this could be asking students to summarize a story that was read in class, or asking them to use the present tense to describe what they will be doing this week. Now, although these are common instructional practices and can benefit the students through either memorization or linguistic practice of grammar, vocabulary, or orthography skills, it can limit the students to not allow them to have opportunities to experiment with the language and the communicative ability that writing provides, as they are kind of restricted to right or wrong answers or ways to complete these assignments. So I found that in solely using a writing to learn or learning to write approach or focus on a product, students may struggle to reflect and improve their writing techniques without going through the process of a writing to learn approach, which we will cover very shortly. So as discussed before, writing as a product views writing as a way for students to kind of show off or prove what they have learned. They write it and then drop it and leave it there. It's used as a way to evaluate linguistic practice and focuses on the result and the information that they have shown that they have acquired, rather than highlighting the value of writing and returning to their work, reflecting on that work, and making meaning of the written form of communication. So a writing to learn approach, as described by Manchón, turns its focus towards the writers, promoting writing in a multiliterate and multimodal manner, having the writers think less and fixate less on prescriptive correctness throughout their writing. So this approach is a multi-step process that requires recursive steps and efforts to aid the writers in discovering more about their writing purpose, the impact of their writing, their intentions in what they are writing, as well as promoting an awareness for the audience and having the writers think about the influence that it may have on their audience, and turns its focus to writing as a process. So within writing as a process, students are asked to intentionally revisit their writing and centers around the impact and the influence, the meaning of the message and how they are conveying it, and focuses on expression rather than correctness in order to produce a result. So to explain the writing process, I will be using examples from the lesson plans I have created following a writing to learn approach. If you would like those lesson plans, please reach out. But first, the instructor will begin by contextualizing the topics in which students will be writing about, and then students will begin by planning their writing, drafting, followed by revising, editing, and concluding with their final draft. So for this unit, I have chosen to center the lessons around the movie No se aceptan devoluciones. I chose this authentic resource as it is a bilingual Mexican-American film, and it follows an immigrant father and his daughter navigating life in the United States. And it can be considered important in Mexican culture as it is to this day one of the highest grossing films in Mexican cinema history. In the unit, students will be covering topics regarding immigration, stereotypes, representation in the media, and heritage language and heritage speakers. And for the final writing task, students will be asked to write a reflective essay where they can consider their personal experiences, conversations with peers, and engagement with the content to share their findings on social media, promoting social consciousness and recognizing heritage families in the community. So the first 3 days of the unit are spent contextualizing the material and having discussions based on the film. And then they begin the planning process. So clear instructions are established from the very beginning from the instructor to maintain transparency on expectations and allow students to cultivate their creative freedom. Then they follow that up with a brainstorming activity. I chose a mind map a mind map for a low-stakes activity to stimulate initial ideas and establish main topics that they would like to contribute in their writing. And then once students have generated these ideas, they then consult with a peer, not only to validate their thought process, but also to think about how they are communicating their ideas to others. So when beginning the drafting stage, students can reflect on the interactions that they had with their peers based off of their brainstorming activities. Instructors can also facilitate this stage by posing thought-provoking questions to strategically aid learners in clarifying their intended message and establish their audience. And students are also able to recognize their value and their contribution as they're kind of throwing their ideas out on paper and not really focusing on the correctness of it all quite just yet. Within the revising steps, students will be asked to holistically review their writing. I have them do this by completing a looping activity where they will summarize each paragraph with one sentence and consider if those sentences kind of hit the marks that they were wanting to convey in their planning stage and make sure that all of those claims are met within their writing. They will also receive peer revisions and feedback from the educator or instructor where they can suggest things like reformulation of claims or modification of arguments in order to help students clarify ideas, moving closer to conveying their intended message within their writing. Now, once the revision process is completed, students can then begin editing their writing. This will be more surface level error corrections. So this could be grammar corrections or adjustment in word choice, punctuation, or orthography. And this can be a multi-step process as well, where they can individually edit their writing, then have peer editing and receive feedback from the instructor. I find that these multi-step tasks can be especially valuable for heritage language learners who may feel consciousness with submitting original work, as this way the students will be revising and revisiting their writing several times before submitting their final draft. Now, to tie everything up with some concluding thoughts, learning to write writing activities can be beneficial for students to memorize and practice specific content, but it may not aid students in improving their writing and their writing skills. And although a writing to learn approach can be very beneficial for students, it requires a significant amount of time and investment from the students and the educators in order to make sure that everything runs smoothly and ensure that intentions are clear throughout the whole writing process. But ultimately, students will reap the benefits of a writing to learn approach as it allows for them to rework and rediscover their writing process and purpose, aiding them in connecting with the material, analyzing their writing, and ultimately improving their writing. Again, thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions regarding my research, or if you would like to see the lesson plans that I have created following a writing to learn approach, please reach out to my email. I've listed it here, allison@ksu.edu. Here I have included my references for the research that I've done, as well as this presentation. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the presentations at the Cefiro conference. Thank you.